One common trend that I've been hearing about since arriving in London about 7 years ago, almost 7 years ago, is that people tend to stay in this city for about 6 to 7 years and then move on. So what I would like to talk about today is the reasons why people move in and out so quickly of the capital. As shown by this graph by the Trust for London, the emigration within the UK from London has been consistently growing for the last 10 years. More people moved out of London to the rest of the country than emigrated internationally to the city. Also, more people leave London to go to other parts of the UK than the other way around. As Londoners, there's the sense that you have to crack the code of living in London, or perhaps I should say surviving in London. Therefore, if you happen to stay more than that amount of time, it's almost as if you're almost thriving in it and you have succeeded in finding that code. It is also said that once you start a career in London, you gain enough experience, you almost have a ticket to work anywhere else in the world, which partly explains the attractive that this huge city has around the world. But we also have to remember that this comes with the unfortunately usual disparities that in these sorts of places are very common in between the so-called 1% of the populations, the richest, and the rest of us. London is still a city where, despite the richness, there are many areas and boroughs that struggle with crime and poverty. I will try then to make a few educated assumptions for the reasons why this is happening and why London is considered a transitional city more than a place to put your roots in. Number one is skills. What skills do people bring in when they come to London? As London is economically strongly based on the tertiary sector, whether it's finance or design or commerce or any sort of services, many times people are required to bring some qualifications with them. They're also required very often to sacrifice a large amount of time to these respective courses. What's left then is the other types of jobs which require unskilled labour. Then we have a situation where both the skilled labour with qualifications and titles and all of that and the unskilled labour both work an unsustainable amount of hours to sustain themselves on one hand, or to prove themselves on the other, and they both end up overworking substantially. Number two is costs. Obviously, London is bloody expensive, and we've got a very good public transport system that costs a lot of money when compared to other big cities such as Paris. Renting for a flat is very expensive on your own unless you earn a very large salary, or at least above average salary. And unless you're in a relationship such as myself, you end up paying way too much, very often more than 50% of your earned income. Number three is time. I've already touched on this partly on my first point, but it is crucial to spend more time on this because the time, or lack thereof I should say, it's really a determining factor for people who wish to change something work-wise or in the work-life balance. We'll come back to that later. And the lack of time, it's often perceived as something that really crushes their dreams to make any significant change. Number four is weekends, and hear me out on this. It may be a little bit controversial, but because of the points mentioned above, I had come to the realization that weekends end up being utilized just to recharge from your work week, which makes total sense. But by doing that, we tend to switch off our brains in terms of what we could do to make our lives better in the long term. If we could learn another skill, which is how do we make the most of the spare time we have other than our main job to plan our future, then I think that would be something really skillful that, you know, would put you ahead of others in terms of what you're actually going to do with your life. Lastly, point number 5 is the so-called work-life balance, kind of an overrated statement here, but it's truly important to enjoy the rest of the time you don't spend working on your main job if you have one. But also at the same time, it's true that enjoying 100% of what you do, even if you're in your dream job, it's not achievable. Therefore, society and the authorities should put in the work to set up tools for people to make changes if they want to, and overall don't feel too pressured and too stuck in their own situations. Hopefully I've given you a nice overview of what I think so far, or what it means to live in London, and my understanding of the reasons why people come and go. And yeah, I mean, London is certainly fascinating, and we might come back to this topic in the future. So thank you for watching till the end. If you want to see more of this, please subscribe. I'll see you soon. Thank you.